It is.
Good evening, everyone.
La-di-da. Same place.
Many of you look tanned. I'm assuming that people are enjoying their summer weather. I am wearing a poppy because there are 30 young people in town right now from Normandy, France, who are very affected by the loss of Canadian lives in World War II, and who were here 4 years ago, who are back. They're reading thousands of names at the Legion, and have been doing that since this afternoon and into the evening. So I just wanted to highlight their presence here and how happy we are to have them here, honored to have them here. Okay, so we have one big issue on the agenda, and I'd like to ask Madam Clerk to do roll call, and then we'll adopt the agenda.
Mayor Benedict Clement.
Présent.
Councillors Claude McIntosh.
I'm here.
Sid Gardner.
Here.
Dean Hollingsworth.
Present.
Caroline Hébert.
Présent.
Councillors Glenn Grant.
Present.
Clark Bennett.
Present.
Justin Towndale.
Present.
And Eric Bergeron.
Present.
Councillor Elaine McDonald has sent in her regrets.
Yes. Adoption of the agenda. Councillor McIntosh. Seconded by Councillor Bennett. All in favor? Any disclosure of interest? Seeing none, we'll go to presentations. So, Madam CAO, you may want to arrange for introductions.
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have one item on the agenda this evening as it relates to the construction with the MTO on the overpass over Pitt Street. I'm going to ask Mr. Falkirk to introduce the matter today.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we're here today to receive a presentation from the MTO in regards to the Pitt Street overpass replacement project. Currently in place is a vertical height restriction at the overpass to 3.6 meters, which is currently restricting Pitt Street to truck traffic. Due to ongoing issues with repeat trucks that continue down Pitt Street, we currently have in place flaggers at the overpass that are turning around trucks continually. This poses a significant health and safety risk and problem to the workers as well as motorists. So with us today we have Stephen Consett from McIntosh Perry, Joanna Bruce from the MTO, and Bill Harnett from the MTO to receive a presentation. They're here today to ask for a nightly closure from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. Until September 17th. So with that, I'll turn now over to the MTO for the presentation.
Welcome to council.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. Thank you for the time in letting us discuss the Pitt Street overpass replacement with you tonight. As Michael mentioned, my name is Stephen Consett and I work for McIntosh Perry Consulting Engineers. I represent the consultant for the Ministry of Transportation for this project. To provide a brief glimpse or overview of the project, essentially the project consists of the replacement of the eastbound and westbound overpasses at Highway 401. It's located in Cornwall, right on Pitt Street. As part of the project, the main portion of the project is the replacement of the structures, and part and parcel of that is some improvements to the roadway below, along with some vertical profile adjustments to Pitt Street. The project is comprised of two stages, primarily. Stage one is 2019. We're currently in stage one, and that is the replacement of the eastbound structure. Stage two will occur in 2020, next year. And it'll be the replacement of the westbound structure. There's also some minor work before and after those two main stages, but that primarily captures the majority of the work. So a portion of the work requires reduced vertical clearance on Pitt Street. The reduction in vertical clearance is to accommodate supports, temporary supports, to construct the superstructure, the new superstructure. That reduction brings the vertical clearance on Pitt Street down to 3.6 meters. And that lasts for approximately three months in both Stage 1 and Stage 2. So a total of 6 months over the course of the project. To sign or to make motorists aware and truckers aware of the reduced clearance, we place signage on Pitt Street along with the roads leading up to Pitt Street. So that would include Toll Gate to the east and west of Pitt Street, along with South Branch Road and Cornwall Center Road. Along with that, there's signage on Pitt Street itself, just to capture anyone turning off of Mackenzie or Wellington, those side streets on Pitt Street. So on the screen is sort of a schematic representation of the project, specifically the staging. So on this schematic, there's signage which pertains to construction, some of which for the pedestrian access on the east side of Pitt Street, some of which for construction access and egress. In the bottom left and right corners, you'll see the contract signage that was placed at the two limits of Pitt Street within our zone, so at Toll Gate and Cornwall Center Road. So the traffic control issues that we're seeing on site commenced at July 4th, and that was when the contractor installed their formwork and falsework over top of Pitt Street. The formwork and falsework sits at 3.6 meters over top of Pitt, and that again goes forward for approximately 3 months, which brings us into mid-September. To avoid any incidents on Pitt Street with truckers impacting the structure, the temporary structure, we've employed flaggers and Cornwall Police to monitor on-site conditions actively. It's difficult for everyone to read the signage. We're just not seeing 100% effectiveness of the signage. So to improve that and ensure that 100% of the time all the trucks are being captured, these flaggers and police are employed. So these closures, the flagging and police on Pitt Street were a temporary measure just to ensure that no incidents occurred. Low clearance ahead signage has proven ineffective basically on Pitt Street. And again, that's not that it's not capturing everyone, it's just that only 90% of the time, let's just say on average, it's effective. The 10% of the time is the portion we're worried about, and that's the trucks actually getting to the structure. On average, we've seen it fluctuate, but on average about 15 vehicles are turned away every day, so it's 7 days a week, and those would be primarily large trucks, oversized trucks. A long-term solution is required, as the current solution with police and flaggers is not sustainable. It's just purely a sort of a manpower issue. There's just not enough people to employ those positions for 3 months, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the proposed solution would be to flag Pitt Street at Wellington and Mackenzie during the day, and that would occur between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. And after 9 p.m., the contractor would implement a full closure of Pitt Street, and that would be done immediately at the structure. So Pitt Street would be open from Toll Gate to the structure to local traffic only, and mirror that on the north side between Cornwall Center and the overpasses at the 401. This would be implemented going forward until mid-September, and it would be monitored going forward to ensure the effectiveness of the solution. That would be the proposal. Moving into stage 2, which would be 2020, the replacement of the westbound structure. We have a similar occurrence where we would be reducing Pitt Street to 3.6 meters. To prevent this, the ministry is looking at redesigning the requirement for vertical clearance and increasing it to accommodate large vehicles, such as trucks. It would capture most trucks going down the street unless there are oversized vehicles that require permit, which would be on a case-by-case basis. This season, That's not as appealing, just due to the schedule for the project. Implementing something such as a redesign currently, right in the middle of construction, we'd be set back in our schedule tremendously, which would risk our completion date, our interim completion date for this season of the eastbound structure. Yeah, I'll hand that over to myself, or that was the end of the
Any
presentation.
questions?
We needed to be told it was the end. We're
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, we
so
went through it.
respectful here, we're just.
One and another thing.
I just wanted to add as well that the risk to our schedule this year would be risking Highway 401 being open to 2 lanes before the winter. We currently have traffic in a median crossover right now with 1 lane in each direction on the westbound structure. If we didn't get the eastbound lane structure complete this year to put 2 lanes of traffic back in each direction, we would have further concerns for our winter maintenance operations on Highway 401 over the winter.
I'll take questions, yeah.
I'll
Councillor
make a
Hollingsworth.
motion to support the recommendation, Your Worship.
Okay.
I believe it's on the last page, A, B, and C. Make sense? Good. Periodic closure.
That was approved in 2017.
Okay.
So we have the presentation.
The one on the
now,
very cover?
And then we have a report following with a recommendation on the first page of the agenda.
See if I get it right.
Grant, are you going to second?
Basically, if I'm not mistaken, so that we know what we're talking about, Your Worship, the
Yes.
first page, council authorized overnight closure of Pitt Street, Tollgate Road, Cornwall Center Road, 9 PM, 6 AM, September's to due, overgoing. That one administration is kind of recommending? Then I would make a motion to support that recommendation, if I can get a second.
Thank you. Seconded by? Councillor McIntosh? Okay, questions. Did you have any question, Councillor Hollingsworth?
I'll let everybody say what they have to say, and then if I feel I need to wade in, that's fine.
We'll come back to you. Councillor Grant, and then Councillor Towndale, and Councillor Bergeron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is this project currently on schedule?
Currently it is, yes.
So there's no need to look past this date because the residents are going to be hampered enough with this without, so they know it's currently on schedule. It'd be nice to hear that it's ahead of schedule, so but currently it is on schedule.
Currently it is on schedule. I mean, as always, we're doing our best to keep it on schedule, and if something arises that brings us ahead of schedule, that'd be great. But currently, for mid-September, for the removal of the reduced clearance, we're on schedule for
Yeah,
that.
I'm sure our residents understand your concerns as well, but they're impeded because the way our city is constructed, as you're well aware. Plus, with Brookdale Avenue having 1 lane, that puts another issue with them. But anyway, okay, that's all I do want to. Thanks.
Councillor Towndale?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A few questions through you. I'd like commentary from our emergency services. All 3, please.
Yes. We'll start with Police Chief.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Commentary from the Cornwall Police Service, obviously, it's been pointed out that there are resource issues in regards to continuing with the paid duties that have been provided for the last several days or weeks. We obviously have concerns about accessing residential areas north of the 401. We will make do in terms of emergency response to that area, but it's certainly not an ideal situation, especially given the current state of Brookdale Avenue with the traffic control there at the Best Buy overpass. So, but in terms of being able to access, our officers will obviously go up McConnell Avenue, Brookdale as an alternative, or Vincent Massey. It's not ideal, but it is what it is.
Chief.
Deputy Chief?
I will echo the police chief's commentary in regards to this. As well. I will add that we went out to do full measurements of all of our vehicles to ensure that we can pass under with the exception of our aerial ladders. So we have put into place contingency plans and stuff, so during the daytime, obviously, we're going to be looking at 2 different levels of service now. Daytime, we'll be able to respond and go under the bridge with our front-run pumpers, with the aerial ladders going out and around McConnell. But nighttime, unfortunately, with this closure, we'll have to do the same thing, go out McConnell or wait for the light at the Brookdale Bridge. It's unfortunate. It is what it is, and we know that that is a limitation for this this timeframe. We're prepared to take that, but unfortunately, you have to understand that our time for response will be slowed.
Chief Lister?
We don't have great concerns. We mostly deployed from the east, so going up McConnell isn't that much different than going up Dick. It's probably a little quicker. We have one vehicle at the example, which all 3 resources won't fit under it day or night. So that is so infrequently used that if we needed to deploy, we could take along the route. It's not one of the first vehicles on scene. Our bigger concern is the 401. That's a major artery for us, as well as it's a high potential for accident. So the quicker we can get this project done, the better it will be, especially when it comes to winter months. If we get a bottleneck there, there's higher risk and a lot of potential for us, and we don't want any of that. So if we can get the project done as quickly as we can, it's the best thing for us.
Thank you. Madam Mayor.
Any
if I may.
follow-up? Yeah?
Yeah. What are the planned closures for Brookdale during the same time period? Yeah, are there any?
Who would have the answer to that? Mr. Caldwell? Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, so the Brookdale Avenue still remains closed to 1 lane at the overpass. That should be ongoing for the next couple of months. So for the duration of the nightly closures on Pitt Street, that would still be ongoing.
Sorry, but my question is, will Brookdale Avenue be completely closed at any time during the same period? Completely shut off to traffic?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no. We do not currently have any plans to shut down Brookdale Avenue.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Matt.
Does anybody from presenters want to respond to any of the comments from emergency responders?
No, I don't think so.
No? Okay. Councillor Bergeron?
Yep, thank you. You mentioned it's not sustainable, there's no sustainable for the workforce, for flaggers. Is that my mic?
That's you. It's fine.
Okay.
Oh, it's Mr. DeWitt.
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Bergeron.
You say it's not sustainable, the flagging. Does that mean it's not sustainable in the budget, or there actually aren't people to place there?
It's people to place there. It was unexpected to have to employ people to stand there 24/7. And when we requested the contractor have these people stand out there, even just their own forces, let alone the city forces, city police, there just wasn't the people to fill the positions.
We did ask the contractor to perform 24/7 flagging, and they don't think they would have the resources to continue doing that.
Is that in the contract?
No, so they're not required to employ flagging or police throughout the duration of construction.
Okay. Not sure how I feel about that yet. So, I mean, personally, based on what I heard from the fire chief and the police chief, I wouldn't support this motion personally. Is there a way that the barrier can allow for emergency services to go through? Has that been considered?
We could look into that. I guess when we decided what the barrier system would look like, we want it to be tamper-proof. We have, the contractor has observed local young residents hanging around this area on the weekends. So we want to make sure that the barrier cannot be removed so that people can start going under, and then trucks could go under as well.
Okay. Have enough information.
Yeah, we can come back to, I'm gonna allow a second round if people have further thoughts. I have Councillor Abad, Councillor Mack, and then Councillor Bennett. Councillor Abad?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can't find it now, but when I read the report earlier, I thought I saw that in the evening, local traffic could still access under the overpass. Am I incorrect?
Yeah, just,
So, yeah, local traffic will be always permitted on
Right.
Pitt Street. They just won't be able to, with a full closure, they wouldn't be permitted to go underneath the 401.
They
So
currently
it's-
are right now because we have the flaggers there
Okay.
for the Cornwall City Police.
So they would still have to make their way around. Okay, never mind. That's-
And we do have a signed detour route that has been in place. The contract did permit periodic full closures of Pitt Street for the construction work as the project was presented to council in September 2017. So we do have a signed detour route included. We are asking to go beyond the periodic into regular nighttime closures until mid-September when the vertical restriction is removed.
I certainly support the motion, because of course there's some health and safety concerns. However, would love to get some more feedback on how our emergency services can access that area a little quicker. That's a big concern. So, before voting, I'd hope we can maybe talk about that a little bit more. See if we can find some, alternatives for them there.
Councillor McIntosh?
Yes. The light at Brookdale, red light, do we have any idea how long that stays on?
My personal experience would indicate almost 5 minutes.
So
Come on.
if
No.
fire department has to use Brookdale and they just happen, the timing, worst case scenario, you hit the red light and there's 20 cars ahead of them, they can't proceed because they don't know what's coming up over the overpass. Correct. That's a real problem. So you're gonna be sitting there waiting for a red light to change. That's a nightmare situation for the fire department and the police and paramedics. You have any idea what the count is for police and fire going to the north end? Is it, it's a low count area, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, that's the same grace. And with paramedics, I was saying we go. Would there be any situation, Bill, would you put the paramedic SUV up in that area?
Normally we keep it on the Brookdale corridor,
Yeah.
west of the
But-
city, but we could deploy anywhere, so we could find a place north of the bridge.
For this period of time, you could have the paramedic SUV there, first responders, the closest. I don't understand the flagger, the trucks are disobeying the flagger, is that it?
No, it's the signs, like
The
just.
sign,
plain
okay, so
signs.
they're disobeying the sign?
Yes.
Is that illegal, chief? Would they be fined or charged?
Yeah, they could,
Have we charged anybody? No?
not,
It's, I agree with Councillor Bergeron, it's a really dicey situation. And I'm surprised that it wasn't thought out months ago. Because remember last year we discussed this situation. I remember asking about what are we gonna do with the emergency vehicles? And you folks weren't here, I don't think, but it was also like we were assured, don't worry, they'll just, we can open it up for emergency vehicles. And now we're being told, no, we're gonna shut it right down. And next year might be okay, so I'm saying, well, why didn't we think of that 8 months ago? You know,
I guess to respond, we couldn't have foreseen that trucks would be disobeying our signage. We thought that our signage was going to be suitable.
okay. Corridor Transit,
So refer it, you're
are they affected by this?
under the overpass. I'm not sure if.
Through you, Madam Mayor, they are impacted. So right now, they have the transit supervisor van during those hours from 9 to 12, picking up residents in the north, in Amherst Corners, and bringing them back to either their destination or the at Pitt Second.
We're talking about the overnight, you say,
Yes,
Overnight.
through you, Madam Mayor, from the hours of 9 to 12.
so we have the van up there, makes the run, picks people up, brings them back. Is that, can the schedule be Can you stick to the schedule?
Through you, Madam Mayor, so the transit buses cannot stick to the schedule, but with the supervisor's van, and the low ridership at those hours, they can meet the schedule.
Yeah. Okay.
I have Councillor Bennett, Councillor Gardner, and then Councillor Hollingsworth. So Councillor Bennett?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you. When we're having the overnight closure, there will still be a possibility for bicycles and foot traffic to go through there?
That's correct, yeah. It'll remain open.
Okay, so, we had an email today with that very question. So, by looking at your pictures, it looks like the signage for the trucks on Pitt Street are already past the corner that they would need to go straight on. Are there signs on Cornwall Center Road before they make that turn?
Yes.
There are, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't notice.
All the corners leading up to Pitt Street, from Tollgate North and Cornwall Center, so.
And they are the electronic flashing signs. We hoped that they would get people's attention before they even made the turn onto Pitt Street. And even with those signs out, we have not had, we haven't had trucks completely eliminated from driving down Pitt Street.
So if I remember correctly in the presentation, about 15 trucks a day average, or
On average.
barely can't read?
Currently, we did start with about 50 trucks a day.
Wow. Is there a reason why we haven't found, Chief, is there a reason why we didn't find the trucks once they made that turn?
I haven't been made aware of one.
Okay.
I wasn't aware of that number of 15. That was the first I'd heard of.
Okay.
I've heard of individual cases where people have had to back up into
Right.
driveways and things and turned around, but I certainly wasn't aware of 15 a day.
Okay. Because I used to drive a truck, and nothing travels faster news than through the CB line when a few fines have been handed out. So I'm thinking if you nailed 15 drivers in a day, your second day is going to be pretty low numbers. The other thing is, have we considered other traffic calming measures, like barriers that we could set up so just vehicles, smaller vehicles get through? And I'm not an artist, but a crude little drawing would be, say, two cement barriers this way and then this way so that cars could make the turn, but trucks couldn't? Is that something we've considered, or is that just a ridiculous thing for me to think about?
It was considered. We had started with the signage, we had enhanced the signage quite a bit from
Right.
what we started
Yeah.
with. And it was just the concern with sort of like a chicane style was the, again, effectiveness, like maybe a shorter tractor trailer, with the same vertical height as a longer tractor trailer would fit, but then
Right.
some wouldn't. So again, it's not 100, we didn't think at the time it would be 100% effective.
And then you'd also run into issues with vehicles towing trailers, passenger cars with trailers,
I suppose.
RVs. There's multiple vehicles you'd have to consider.
Makes sense.
So the safest way would be just to close it to everybody, and then we don't have to worry about any high load strikes or anyone getting caught in there.
Okay. Do you think if we were to hand out fines for 2 days, that would be enough to get the word out to the rest of these people that seem to be, can't tell how tall their trucks are, to give it a second thought?
It may help, but the concern is it only takes one truck to get through.
That's
And one truck, one high load strike, and the formwork's gone, and they're starting over. So that's our concern.
And not only is the formwork gone, we're concerned about the safety of the motorist that hits the formwork and pieces becoming dislodged. And then, of course, through the day, it's worker safety as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gardner?
To the fire department, I remember on council before, and this deals with Brookdale, you were able to, if you're going down Sydney Street, you can change the lights as you go, right? Can that be done on Brookdale, or whatever's set up? Could it be done there, where you could red light the back area and green light where you're coming from?
Through you, Madam Mayor. No, it does not have an Opticom system put on the temporary measures that are on the bridge.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Hollingsworth?
Now, just so I'm aware, Your Worship, you're going to give us a second crack at this if we need to?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so a couple of quick questions just first before I start. Heavy trucks going through here present a safety hazard, correct? That's really what the core of this debate or this problem is really all about. We have signage up and they're saying, sign schmine, they're just driving through anyway, who cares? We're doing what we want. We have the police attempting to kind of manage it. Now, Chief, if we started issuing fines, does that really present a long-term solution to this problem, or in your professional opinion? Or is it, yeah, it'll work for a couple of weeks, and then as soon as everybody thinks we're not there anymore, we'll start driving down there again?
Through you, Madam Mayor, my initial thought when I heard about the issue this morning or last week, was why are commercial vehicles driving up Pitt Street anyhow? Other than businesses located there, I don't know how many deliveries big transport trucks make to the local businesses. But could we, as part of the traffic plan, not divert commercial traffic like that to the periphery as opposed to straight down through the middle of the city? I'm sure that there's been debates about traffic plans in previous councils. I don't know what the status of that is now, but I was a little bit surprised to hear that there's been 15 a day who are coming that way. I wouldn't have thought that there should be 15 transport trucks coming south on Pitt Street any day, regardless of restricted traffic.
So that being said,
Fine. Well, I'm an advocate of.
Band-Aid up, which
No, I'm an advocate of public education through issuing tickets.
Okay.
And so we will visit that issue on a go-forward basis, and I'll inform myself in regards to whether or not the pay duty officers who've been located there have actually issued any tickets.
Okay.
I'm just not aware of whether they have or not.
Fair enough. One last, Sydney Street is currently closed. Does that present a risk to you guys or a problem to you guys if you had to service that area?
To which, sorry?
So Sydney Street currently is closed from, 2nd Street all the way to 4th Street. Is that potentially, if you had to get in there and do something, is that going to would that present a barrier for you?
Through you, Madam Mayor, our staff have been diligent in planning that entire area to ensure, as well as the Pitt Street construction area, to ensure they know what addresses that they can access from either side of the closure, whether it's 3rd Street or 4th, coming into Sydney, as well as how to get to the addresses that are actually on Sydney. So yes, it does impact our capability to get to that street or to that section of street. However, it doesn't, it probably wouldn't slow our response knowing that it's like one block that we would be accessing.
Okay. In terms of servicing, and I realize I'm just kind of take a bit of an educated guess here, how often on any given over a span of, let's say, a month, how often would you be caught on Brookdale having to wait for the red light to change to get your vehicles to someplace else? Based on, the community, there's not a lot of residents out in that part, but I don't know what I'm talking about, so I'll let you be the guide.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would have to look at those numbers to
Sure.
find out, to see what kind of numbers that we would respond to in the north section of the city, above the 401. But knowing that the core kind of development of that area is residential, it would probably be less than certainly the area of the center of the city that we respond to on an ongoing basis.
Fair enough. Thank you. Okay, so here's where I'm going with this, Your Worship. We have a problem. It presents a risk, according to our professionals. Safety risk. No matter how you spin it, there is potentially a safety risk. So if you close the roadway, or emergency services potentially have a problem. If you don't close the roadways, MTO is saying we have a problem. One last question, if I might, so that I understand. Currently, the contractor doesn't have to technically provide a flagger overnight because no provision in the actual tender did it say you have to provide somebody overnight.
That is correct. We didn't have plans for night work on a regular basis on this contract, so there is some periodic work with permitted periodic nighttime closures, such as the demolition of the bridge or placing these temporary items. But other than that, the contract did not include for night work. Therefore, the contractor is not required to provide anyone at night. That being said, though, we have issued a change order to them to provide people for flagging, and they have been doing that with assistance with Cornwall City Police as well for underpaid duty. However, we have heard from the police services and from the contractor that it's the manpower that we are not able to get on a regular basis committed until mid-September.
Okay, so here's where I'm going with this, Your Worship. Sydney Street is currently closed. It's just closed, that's it. A lot of people who live there have a lot of opinions about that, but the municipality pushes on. The work can't happen without the street being closed, that's just how it works. We clearly have a safety issue that's been identified. Perhaps we could go and write fines, and I'm sure our police service would be more than happy to do that if need be. But the problem that I see in terms of that, without enough data, is that while you fine people for this week and next week, and everybody says, oh, I guess we shouldn't go there, as soon as there is the notion that there's no longer somebody there issuing fines, people will start trying to break the rules again, because that's just the human condition. The fact of the matter is, Your Worship, while this may not be the ideal scenario, and certainly nobody wants to put our emergency services under duress, the fact is there's a safety issue. I think this is, quite frankly, the only practical, though not like, wow, I'm sure glad we're doing this, but we have to do something. I think this is the only practical, while not our, like, we're not happy about it, but to me, it seems like the only practical solution to ensure public safety over the long term. We'll wait and see what everybody else has to say.
So I'm going to allow us a go-around, and I have Councillor Grant and Councillor Mack to speak again, but I'd like to ask a question before that. Is this different from any other, because these bridges are being reconstructed everywhere, right? So is this going on in every municipality, this problem with trucks and clearance, and why does this feel like it's just us?
Oh, okay, yes. So the Pitt Street structure is rigid frame.
Right.
So I guess what's different about this one from other bridges that we have that we're replacing is that the volume and weight of new concrete in the bridge deck is significantly more than our other bridge designs with girders, and therefore the temporary support system required to support that concrete while it's wet and while it's curing and obtaining its strength is quite a bit more robust than our other designs. During the design phase, our designers, WSP, who you've heard from before, consider all bridge types and choose the appropriate type of structure based on a variety of factors, including soil conditions and clearances for the final configuration. They considered the reduction about the vertical clearance here as well, and it was presented with the design as part of the project to the city when we sought endorsement. So I think that's why this one has the issue, is the type of bridge that is being constructed here. I'm not aware if we've had any other issues. I guess this one also is a bit different because the 401 goes over a city street. Normally it's the municipal roadways go over the 401, so the vertical clearance restrictions are usually on 401. So that's probably why this one's different. Do you have any other comments?
Yeah, just that in my experience along this corridor, the 401, the county road or city road runs over top of the highway. So you simply would just close the county road for a period of time to reconstruct the bridge, versus here, the city road is going underneath the highway. So it actually reduces the impact to the county or city road by keeping it open most of the time. Versus on this one, that was the intention, to keep it open. However, the vertical clearance restriction has obviously posed an issue with oversized vehicles that was not anticipated in this volume.
And if I may add, we do have some bridges under construction in the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, and they are not interchanges, so they are similar to Pitt Street in that manner. However, the decision was made to close the municipal road entirely for the duration of construction. And it improves the schedule as well. So we do have other roads which are not interchanges over the 401 with full closures just for the entire construction season. Here, we realize there is a lot of local traffic, and we can get a commitment from the contractor to be available or provide through a subcontractor flagging for daytime, 7 days a week. It's the nighttime shifts that they're having the real issue with.
So that was not anticipated?
No.
And the volume of trucks was not anticipated?
No.
Yeah, and just people not adhering to signage, they're reading the signs and going right by them, or not reading them, but they're still making their way to the structure, which.
And anecdotally, we've heard that people are trying to avoid Brookdale and taking Pitt Street instead, so there is a bit more truck traffic trying to avoid Brookdale and taking Pitt.
So the police chief earlier spoke of a traffic plan. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I mean, I'm just trying to wonder if, do we have plans, whenever construction's taking place like this, does the contractor and the MTO try and figure this out? Okay, so there's something going on in Brookdale, so we can figure out the trucks are going to be trying to get this way. Why is it that so many trucks are using Pitt? Do we know all of this? Have we analyzed this?
I don't know that we've analyzed it, but an example of a traffic plan, when the bridge was, over the river was being deconstructed, we had traffic plans in place for, if there was a protest or something going on, we diverted traffic away from the area and looked at how to best get vehicle traffic from point A to point B. My thought was, in regards to, Pitt Street cuts the city of Cornwall right in half.
Yes.
From a commercial vehicle perspective, I don't know where the city's traffic plan sits in regards to whether it's appropriate to have transport trucks driving down the middle of the city. But that's something that hasn't been looked at. Certainly in my time as the deputy chief or chief of police, we've never been asked to provide consultation on that particular issue. So
Thank
I don't
you.
know when the traffic plan was last looked at in regards to where trucks are allowed to actually go.
Thank you. Madam Chair? Sure.
Through you, Madam Mayor, so all of our, including city and MTO and other organizations, so any major significant capital project would have a construction and traffic management plan. So they would have all of the detours, all of the traffic signage, all of the message boards you all see would be worked out before, using traffic counts that the city has on record for the last number of years. So every project would have a traffic plan in place.
Okay.
And so did this one. The unfortunate part is, unfortunately, the motorists aren't following the traffic plan and aren't following the traffic management measures that are in place. So that's the major issue at hand.
Okay. But it can't be only drivers in Cornwall that don't follow rules, right? This has got to be elsewhere, similar issues around signage?
Well, in this
I just can't-
situation, it may not be local drivers. It may be the long-distance driver, like I said, if they're coming southbound on 138, and if they're looking at their GPS or following GPS rather than the signs, their GPS may say, well, instead of turn right on Cornwall Center, turn left on South Branch and then head south to avoid the delays on Brookdale. And as the MTO, this is a challenge we face all the time with a lot of our plans. People don't read signs, they follow their GPS. That finds the quickest route. And I'm sure that the fire department and the police have run into similar things where, how did you end up here? Well, my GPS told me to.
Right,
this
and
is an ongoing
GPS
issue.
doesn't factor in recent, up-to-date construction work.
Does not, no. Sorry, not all of them. There are some that do.
Some that do. Yes?
If I may, Madam Mayor, some of the additional measures that we have taken when this issue was first realized, we have improved the signage out there. We do have this vertical clearance restriction on our 511 website. We did notify, as part of our notifications to all of the agencies, including emergency services, we did send notification to the Ontario Trucking Association. We asked, Cornwall City Police was very gracious in putting stuff out on their social media for us. The contractor sat down for an entire day calling and emailing local businesses about this. We added the electronic message boards, which were not included in the contract, so we issued a change order to add that. We are making continued improvements to the signs, and we did add Imperial conversions to the electronic boards because we were considering that some people from the States might not know the metric system. So we have tried to take some additional measures to see if we can improve it, and it is improving. We did go from 50 trucks a day in the beginning down to about 15, but our concern is all it takes is one to create that safety issue and open us up to the liability of that.
Okay, I'll go back to the list. Councillor Grant, then Councillor Mack, and Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I'm going to support the motion because I think it's short-term pain for long-term gain. Just takes one, as you repeat it, one vehicle to go through, and now we're into a much longer period to do it. So just want to voice that I'll support this motion, and I think it's the right way to go about it.
Thank you. Councillor Mack?
Yeah, GPS, great answer. I got stuck one time in Montreal following my GPS in a construction zone, ended up in the middle of nowhere and didn't know how to get out. So that's when you rely on these things, they don't change. We don't have a flagger at night. A truck goes through there, traffic really will be stopped. So there's
And for an undetermined amount of time, I'm sure.
yeah, it's going to happen. Suppose that. So I'm going to support the motion. It's pretty logical. It's unfortunate we got the Brookdale situation going on at the same time. And that regards to staffing, chief, summer, you're short guys, holidays. You're probably having trouble staffing your regular shifts.
It's a bit of a perfect storm when you schedule vacation and try to respond to calls for service. I can give an example. The July 1st weekend, we responded to almost 300 calls for service that weekend. We would not have the resources available to post a police officer or two police officers permanently at this location at this time. If this were October or November, we may be able to reconsider that, but in the middle of summer, it's not feasible.
Yeah, no, and you put a paid duty guy out there, he's not going to be called in on overtime the next day because he's home sleeping. Okay, no problems with supporting this.
Councillor Gardner?
I just had fines and signs, and I'm going to support the motion because we could talk all night. But I wondered if we had camera equipment that on the signs we could have a warning that fines will be issued if you go up through this area, and if we had the camera equipment to take pictures of those trucks that are trying to do that and find them that way, is that within the law? Like, you're on camera, you're gonna get fined, put it on the sign, let them know.
Police chief?
I'm aware of red light cameras. I'm not aware of sign cameras. There may be such an ability out there, but
But I'm wondering if they could put it on.
There's no framework under the Highway Traffic Act right now
Right.
for that.
it's just the red lights, right?
Right.
Okay,
And
so
soon to be for photo radar.
I'll support the motion. Let's move on with it. We could talk about this all night and we're not gonna get anywhere, so.
Councillor Bergeron?
So I have a question, I suppose, for the CAO. This sounds to me like a manpower issue that we're dealing with now as a safety issue. Does the city of Cornwall have the resources to use people to flag at night? Is that possible? Because that would solve all of our problems, I think.
Madam Chair?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, we wouldn't have resources on staff. Whether or not we could assist with trying to reach out to contractors to see if we might be able to find some resources. Cost would be significant as well for such coverage. But I think even with our own staff, if we're redeploying staff during the evening, 7 days a week for that, that's taking quite a bit out of our because it's gonna be 2 stations, I believe, on each end of Pitt Street, right? So there's probably, let's say, a minimum of probably 4 resources that are required in total. Correct?
I believe we're using 3, 1 at each end, plus you need a floater to cover for bathroom breaks or any other emergency.
And the floater needs to be a supervisor, I think, under the Occupational Health and Safety Act.
Thank you. Just throwing out some suggestions. I really, really would like to see a solution that allows the emergency services to get through. Until I see that, I won't support it.
Councillor Talbot?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before we get to the vote, I just wanted to ask this. MTO has enforcement officers, do they not? And they specifically target commercial vehicles?
Yes.
Although I did see them pull over a pickup truck the other day in the Walmart parking lot, so I assumed something was wrong with it. I don't know what. But could they not stand in here overnight? Could there not be something done?
I did reach out to our enforcement officers and ask them that, and they also do not have the resources to do that. They said that they will increase their presence in the area, but they can't dedicate officers for shifts.
Yes, thank you. I tend to agree with Councillor Bergeron on this one because I do have concerns when it comes to emergency services and the response. I would prefer to see a solution that would allow them to pass because, you know, like a few of my colleagues around the table, I was here when we received the project and we approved some of the measures taken in 2017. And, you know, this has changed quite drastically. This is not what we were told. I get it that there's unforeseen circumstances, but it's basically because people are skirting the rules and skirting the law, so we now have to inconvenience everyone else because of it. And I'm not really in favor of that, because it also inconveniences response times for police, fire, and EMS. And that's not a great solution at all, because this wasn't planned for, and this is coming up, and it's going to be pretty last minute here. So that's something, I can't support it like that. I really think there should be a solution to enable our emergency service to go through. I don't know what that looks like exactly, but I think that has to be a priority for a number of reasons, especially with Brookdale the way it is, and the fact that we have a light on a bridge that really prohibits response times going through there.
Councillor Hollingsworth?
Just doing some really quick math. 3 people, 24 hours a day, $20 an hour, about 14 weeks, works out to about $160,000. Now, I don't know if you can put a price tag or not on that, and somebody who's smarter and more mathematical than me can check those numbers. But that's
It's not 24/7. It's 9 to 6.
Well, no, you have a flagger. Fair enough. So let's
They're
split it
already
in
paid
half.
for.
72,000. Sound better?
Yes?
Perfect. Excellent. So either way, the point is this. Our CAO seems to articulate that we may not have manpower for that. I see her shaking her head, so that doesn't seem like that's a practical solution. Anybody who's ever done construction knows that no matter how much you plan, there's almost invariably something that goes wrong that you didn't anticipate, hence the problem we have. Certainly, as I mentioned before, I'm not saying it's the perfect solution or it's great, but when we talk about potential liability, Your Worship, I'm not sure what the price tag would be for something like that, but I suspect it would be considerable. Therefore, I'm going to support the motion as presented.
So, I'd like to go back to the MTO, because this is not a city project, right? It's not our project. It's your project. So, you're hearing us here with concerns, and it's your resources that would go to pay for whatever amount it is. So, are you saying that it's not the money, it's really just the availability of labor?
Yes, to confirm, we have asked the contractor to provide 24-hour flagging operations, and we have asked the Cornwall City Police to provide us with resources, and we've heard back from both that they do not have the resources to do that. The contractor has said that they cannot even hire people on to do this. They've reached out to subcontractors. There is a lot of construction work going on in and around this area, and they don't have the manpower. We have issued a change order to them and asked them to find us these people, and they have responded that they cannot come up with the people.
It's not about the province not wanting to put the money up or the contractor not wanting to factor that into the contract?
No, we issued a change order to pay for those services, and they have responded that they cannot find people to fill those positions.
Councillor Gardner?
We have security services in this city. Would we not be able to contact some of these services and find out if they have the people that could do that work, paid for by the MTO?
Does anybody have an answer for that?
I can refer it to Mr. DeWitt, but I think I'm just gonna, my initial comments would be that the contractor is Tomlinson, fairly reputable contractor in our community. If they're having difficulty finding resources to man those stations, I would imagine that if we would be calling the same types of contractors that they would, but I'm gonna ask Mr. DeWitt if he wants to add any other comments.
Through you, Madam Mayor, my understanding is that the contractor that they have for flagging is a professional contractor that have people specifically trained for that kind of work. So I'm not sure what's involved with training, if they're associated with, like, if the MTO, or if we were to get involved with that. I can't comment on that.
We can't solve that problem until we try and find out what's available and if they're able to do that kind of work.
So I'm gonna,
Point of clarification.
Councillor Mack, go ahead.
We have to pass this tonight, don't we? Have to make a decision tonight?
Yeah.
So if we're gonna go shopping for flaggers for the next 2 or 3 weeks and then come back here, and meanwhile the trucks, it doesn't make any sense. It sounds like it has to be done tonight.
You're a couple of phone calls away.
We
All
still,
right, it's okay. No. I'm just gonna go one last time to the emergency responders for any additional comment. I mean, all three of you have heard the concerns of the council. Is there anything that you'd like to add? I mean, I am gonna call for a vote, but I'd like to give all three of you an opportunity to comment. I heard Chief Lister say that your service might be able to adapt a bit better because you can deploy differently. And so there may not be as many concerns from EMS perspective. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm hearing. Not sure, maybe Police Chief and Deputy Chief Fire might want to comment before we call for a vote.
My only comment, Your Worship, would be geographically, it's a low-frequency area in terms of responding to calls for service. However, there's a big but with that. It's the one emergency call that we need to get to as quickly as possible. That would be the concern.
Deputy Chief?
Again, through you, Madam Mayor, I would echo the police chief's comments, as well as make the comment that our Station 2 normally would respond up McConnell to that area anyways. Our Station 1 would be delayed, as it would have to proceed through Brookdale or over to McConnell to come back. However, that comes with a caveat that if that incident happens just north of the bridge, they do have to respond up, around, and back down to the location. And that is what truly will provide the delay in service. With that said, you know, your service, your fire service will do its best with the situation that it's given. It will respond diligently and with with the full expectation and understanding that we know where those closures are. We know what addresses are, beyond the closure or precede the closure on both sides. We're very aware of the areas that are serviced by the fire service in those areas and what we're doing to get to those locations. So understanding that is a risk, that's the risk that we're asking you to give us guidance on tonight.
Any further comments from council? So I will just say that I am extremely disappointed that in this day and age, we're not able to keep up with the fact that people use GPS. I'm extremely disappointed that, you know, we don't have a handle on the truck traffic that's going through our city, that truck traffic is not following signs, and that all of these things conspire to put people at risk. It's extremely disappointing to have this situation in 2019 that we couldn't anticipate. However, that being said, this project needs to be completed, and we also need to move forward. So I'm now going to call for vote.
Recorded vote, please.
Recorded vote? Madam Clerk? Yes?
Councillors Claude McIntosh,
In favor?
Sid Gardner,
Favor.
Dean Hollingsworth,
Favor.
Kennedy Nabal,
In favor?
Councillors Glenn Grant,
In favor?
Todd Bennett,
In favor.
Justin Towndell,
No.
Eric Bergeron,
Opposed?
and Madam Mayor.
In favor.
So we have a majority.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's sobering, and obviously we'll continue to monitor. I would ask that our emergency responders stay in touch with us. If ever your feelings around the level of risk change, I would ask you to communicate with me and the CAO immediately, so that we take a look at this again. Any further comments? Yes.
Thank you,
MTO.
everyone, for your time tonight, and thank you to our partners, the city staff, who have been working with us through this issue. We appreciate it, and Cornwall City Police. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We are your partners. It is your project, though.
Yes, it is.
I continue to say that this is a provincial issue, but we will always work with the province. So thank
We
you for
appreciate
joining
that. Thank you.
the competence of city staff. Thank you. Thank you all for your patience tonight. Take care. Don't swap.
My,
Oh, motion to adjourn. Sorry, Councilor Gardner?
I ask, first of all, that the CAO or that department will call security services in the city and talk to the police department to find out which ones are very reputable and could possibly do the job. I mean, that's gotta be done in a hurry.
Okay, so Madam Mayor, that's different than the motion that we've just passed on the floor. And I think also too, we need to take into consideration the training, so it's not just a matter of finding security resources, it would be finding the resources with the right training to be able to complete that. I think just with recruiting, if there was a resource or a firm that was readily available, I think that we would think if anybody knew who to contact, it would be the MTO or it would be Tomlinson through a project like this. So I think our efforts to try to find resources that meet those requirements, I'm not optimistic that we'd be able to do it.
Neither am I, but, I mean, if we don't try, we won't know. Pretty simple.
It's contrary to a motion, Madam Clerk?
Sorry?
It's contrary to the motion.
Okay. Let's not try.
Okay. I understand your comment, though, Councilor Gordon. I hear you. Motion to adjourn? Oh. Sure. Before I entertain a motion to adjourn, Madam CAO would like to speak about an upcoming meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My apologies. We have a special council meeting planned for 1 week from today prior to the PAC meeting at 7 p.m. We had planned for the special council meeting to begin at 5 p.m. for training for council as required by the Safe Drinking Water Act. It's also a requirement for our drinking water quality management system. I'm gonna make sure I get all of that spelled out properly. The training requirement actually is a 3-hour session. I had hoped we'd be able to have it scaled down to about an hour and a half or 2 hours. So we're informed that it has to be 3 hours to be able to get through the entirety of the training. So we would want to start that council meeting at 4 p.m. If council thinks that that would be too much for that evening, we would have to reschedule it for another time. But we were hoping that maybe trying to put that in at the PAC meeting, council might be available and
Councilor Mann?
we would have refreshments.
Is it mandatory to attend?
We need to have quorum from council.
Oh, no, but if the councillor doesn't attend,
So,
No, so if the counselor does not attend, but we need to have quorum for council to be able to be successful.
And we are issued certificates as part of the training as well.
Yeah.
It's an exam?
I think it would be council also.
Council as a whole?
Madam, yes, that's my understanding.
So if everybody can try and pick up some time earlier on Monday, that would be greatly appreciated.
Sure. Have refreshments.
There will be food. Okay.
Sold.
Merci. Motion to adjourn? Councillor Hébert, Councillor Grant, all in favor? Merci.
Sorry?
I don't think it would pan out, to be honest, no.